Right, okay then, Danny. So where are you from? Where were you born?
Born in Wigan, Hindley. Lived there my whole life. Lived in the same house my whole life as well.
Have you ever lived anywhere else in your life or not?
No,
No?
no. Always been in the same place.
Have you travelled quite extensively throughout your time?
Yeah. Mostly around Europe. Um, Went to America for the first time earlier this year. But it's been mainly Germany, the Netherlands. Used to do a lot of trips to Sweden when I was working in Sweden once a month over there. But yeah.
You were born in Wigan,
hmm
and just talk about your condition, Danny.
Yeah.
Your parents as well, and any siblings that you have.
Yeah. So I was born in 1992. I was diagnosed before my birth with Osteogenesis Imperfecta Type 2. It's also known as brittle bone disease. Um, Basically, sort of does what it says on the tin. The bones fracture very easily. Um, it was picked up when I was still in the womb. Although they did think I was going to be born a girl, so they got one part of it wrong on there. But
So did you have another name ready? Did your
I don't
parents have
know,
another name ready?
I'm not too sure. I'll have to sort of quiz that one with my brother. But um, yeah, so they had obviously the choice to terminate the pregnancy or not, and Mum decided against that. Um, but I was born earlier through a C-section because that was sort of deemed as more safe than a natural birth because of the risk of fractures. The fact was, whilst I was in the womb, I was fracturing bones as I was developing. So
Really?
I was born with basically every bone at some point over that pregnancy was broken, except my skull, I believe. That was the only one. But coming out, I was both arms and legs and ribs had fractures.
So was that just due to movement in the womb as
Yeah,
well, Danny?
yeah, just me, like a baby does, kicking, moving around, wriggling would cause fractures. That's how delicate I was at that age, and as a fetus, as a baby.
And the bones are so soft anyway, so that's probably the reason why that is.
Yeah,
Yeah. So are there different levels of the disease that you have?
yeah. There's a lot. There's type 1, and I'm going to butcher this, probably going to have to Google it yourselves, but type 1 is very sort of mild on the face of it. People can, be walking around, um, will fracture easier than an average person. The bone density is lesser than an average person. This is where I get a little bit confused because there's type 2 and type 3. My understanding is type 2 is more severe than type 3. That type 2 is the most severe you can get. Um, with type 2, there is an element of short stature, but a lot more severe than myself. So I come in at about 3'6", 3'7". But typically people with type 2 are like around the 3 foot mark or slightly less. Um, Very little upper body strength. Will use a power chair often than not. I'm more on the type 3 side of being a type 2. Um, Whereas type 3 is, again, it's more milder. Probably a bit more what I would look like physically as well, but a little less prone to fractures than myself or someone with type 2.
So your parents knew this was going to be the case,
hmm
but obviously they don't have any experience. You just gotta see what happens and kind of go with
Yeah,
that. What are
the
you their first child as well, Danny?
my mum's second child, my dad's fourth child. Yeah. So bit of backstory. My mum's English, my dad's Palestinian. So he has uh, my brother, who is the eldest, David, and then he has two other kids that are younger than my brother, David, Sharif, and Iman, and then myself, and then there's three more after me as well. Uh, Ashraf, Allah, and I'm gonna have to edit this bit out because I'm gonna get in trouble. Uh, Ashraf, Ella, and Hermione. I'll do that again because.
It's a big
So
family though, Danny.
I
You've
know,
got a
yeah,
big family going on
yeah.
there. I mean, it's hard to remember every. I mean, are you in touch
Well,
with them all? Can you see them often
so
or
I
not?
actually didn't know the existence of a lot of them until after my mum passed away. I only, as far as I was concerned, it was me and my brother David. And then, after my mum died, there's this sort of whole world that opened up, and I discovered that I had other siblings.
Well, we can forgive you kind of forgetting a few names
Yeah,
here and there, because that's the thing. If you don't grow up, it's really hard to, remember people, especially even aunts, uncles, and all this kind of thing.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
because you only know who like is under your roof really, and that's your close family and your
yeah, yeah,
immediate
yeah,
family as well.
yeah. So,
So just to just to go back to you're born and obviously your mum and dad have you and you have this disease.
mhm.
So, I mean, what were your early days like? Because
Yeah,
nobody else
um,
can understand apart from yourself.
it's obviously it's 1992. Like the knowledge around disability in general was a lot different than now. You didn't really see disabled kids or people on the streets. There wasn't the same media coverage or exposure for disabled people as there is today. So there was just very little knowledge out there in public domain. Same, the internet wasn't readily available like it is now. You couldn't even go on Google or Instagram or TikTok, or there was no like role model or no like sort of.
Like instant advice, isn't it? Really, you
Yeah,
kind of
there was none of that around back then, and um, it's all been like it was all like circumstance and luck that played a big part in my development. So where I was born, at Billinge Hospital, was then referred to a consultant at Wigan Infirmary, Dr. Hopcroft, and he was in charge of ortho. So every time I'd have a fracture, we'd go in, see him, they couldn't slap a cast on me when I was that young and that fragile. So they used to do this thing called gallows. But basically, you'd be on the bed, they'd have like a frame that come over the bed either side, two pieces of string dangling off the bed, and then they'd wrap your legs. So it was my legs that was more prone to fracturing than my upper body. They'd wrap my legs in bandages, attach it to the piece of rope, and then they'd lift your bum about an inch off the bed, and you'd stay like that for about 6 weeks. So that was a lot of my childhood right there.
is that from day one, Danny? Is this kind of
Uh,
it's how old were you when like
it was a regular thing from being born. I don't know if it was like day one, but I can imagine there probably was a lot of um, intervention from the hospital in that, in terms of controlling the fractures. And there's a lot of trial and error from my mum, because you know yourself when you have a baby and that you're picking them up, you're changing them. Any little thing like that would have caused a fracture back then. That's how delicate I was.
must have been stressful for you, mum?
Probably.
Danny,
She was a very strong person, and I can only imagine, the strength, like mentally, to sort of, you're gonna potentially cause pain to your child, and it's hard, but she did a good job, I think. You know.
So were you in pain all the time, Danny?
Uh,
Can you
I
remember
don't
this?
remember. I remember fracturing. I remember having, trips to the hospital, and like any baby, you cry and you're upset and that, but I don't remember being in pain as a baby. I was like any other kid, you don't know, you push boundaries, you're always like wanting to do stuff, you're wanting to get up to mischief, and, you see something like, go get it, or whatever, doing something you're not. So it never stopped me. It never knocked my confidence. I just think as I grew up, I sort of learned what I was capable of. But definitely as a baby, there was no stopping me.
So, I mean, this must have been kind of on and off quite a lot. Was it kind of fracture in hospital? At what age were you born sort of a bit more, malleable and kind of, if that's the right word to say, sort of strong enough for you to kind of be more independent as a
Um,
kid? Can you remember back then? It was like 5 or 6 or something like that. Or...
it's hard to answer that, because there was a lot, like I said, there was a lot of trips to the hospital. There was a lot of 6-week periods being on the gallows or being in, if my upper body was fractured, being in a cast. I didn't actually have a wheelchair until I was 5. So I'd get around scooting on my bum on the floor, like just using my upper body to move myself around. I went to a special needs school that catered for infants all the way up to high school, called Mere Oak School. And um, a lot of them, like, the reception year was just sort of, learning early skills, learning, very basic things, but also a lot of it was a daycare sort of style thing, because there was such a wide range of kids with disabilities. Some couldn't verbally speak for themselves, couldn't control the movements, so they just needed looking after in a sense. And then there was, other kids that were more coherent and, had the ability and the potential to develop social skills and, be more um, active within themselves. So there was a very wide range, and the benefit of going to Mere Oaks as well is right next to the hospital. So whenever I had an accident, it was literally on the same street, just a bit down the road. They'd back in the old days when there was pagers, so they'd page my mum, and she'd make her way over and meet me at the hospital, and that was quite a regular thing as well.
So I mean, it's hard to ask another question
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I could talk all day about the details in this. We could go from like for 20 minutes about the age of 1, then 2,
yeah,
then
yeah,
3,
yeah,
because
yeah,
it could kind of go on
yeah.
for a
But
long time.
I,
I'm
I
just
will, I will just to answer your question. I think the day when I got a wheelchair, I think that was when I started to do more for myself. Um, the social services and wheelchair services in Wigan were involved, and the school as well, because the school had experience, obviously, dealing with all these kids with disabilities. So once I had a chair and I was able to move around, that was sort of the starting point there.
Yeah, because you mentioned your upper body was more stronger as well.
Hmm.
Is there a reason why? Because of that, or is it because are you strengthening your body because you're using it more
Yeah,
upper?
I think a bit of it's like, a bit of luck plays part. I was less prone to fractures to my arms compared to my legs. So I don't know why that is. It's just, excuse me, it's just the way it's played out.
Yeah. Okay. So you just kind of used that, and that was your main kind of
Yeah,
way of kind of mobility, really,
yeah,
wasn't it?
yeah.
So getting around. So school, obviously, you're in a different setting than most kids in schools, and you're in with various disabilities as well.
Yeah.
I mean, what was it like kind of being in a school with various, kids'
Um,
disabilities and stuff like that?
it,
I mean, obviously, it's the norm to you, so it wouldn't really,
yeah,
you don't really know any different, do you,
no,
when you're a
no,
kid? So,
no. I was in this bubble,
yeah.
and this is what I just thought life was, and I was living life. I was, happy, playing, learning as well. Education was going on. It might not have been to the same standard as a mainstream primary school or secondary school, but was being educated as well. And it definitely taught me a lot about compassion, about understanding, um, patience. I was always the one, and Mum used to always say this. I was always the one that would get in trouble a lot with the teachers, because I was always sticking up for them kids that couldn't speak for themselves, or I felt there was like a bit of an injustice going on or something. I was always the first to sort of be like, no, that's wrong, that, and I'd suffer the consequences for that. But them are the things I look back on, and I think I'm glad I was like that, because I think as an adult they're important morals to have and pillars to sort of stand by.
Yeah, because you've gone through a lot as well, but there's all, it seems like there's a determination in you and nothing's going to stop you kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think those two things really kind of are quite close together, the injustice thing, and you'll speak out and you'll speak up
Yeah.
because you see it all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
was that kind of what you were as a kid? Did you kind of, I mean, let's go into secondary school and junior school and all this kind of, did you have friends outside of school? So
Uh, as I got older, like more things started to develop in terms of like what the council would put on. So the local sports development unit started to do like an after school club, at Robin Park. and that was sort of one place where I'd socialise with more kids with disabilities from other places. Really sort of captured my love for sport as well within doing all of that. In terms of out and about, not really. I very much stayed at home. My mum didn't drive. I was very lucky. I had a good uncle that would drive me around, take me to my hospital appointments, take me out fishing, take me to football games. It was very much. I spent a lot of my childhood around older people, around you know family, parents, their friends, and I was always able to do what I wanted, but it was with someone.
So there was nothing in you, like you see kids out on the bikes, they're kicking footballs around. I mean, that becomes
Yeah,
the norm. So
there,
how are you seeing that? You know?
there was frustration. I definitely remember times of wanting to go out and do things, and my mum sort of wrapping me in cotton wool and not wanting me to go out, and a bit of fear from her. Um, because she obviously knows, I'm in the chair, the consequences if I fall out the chair and I'm out with, kids my own age, they're not going to know what to do. So I understand it from that point of view, but at the same time, as a kid, you just wanted to go out and have fun, aren't you? Um, I always made best of what I had. I think I would sit and bounce a ball against the wall in my bedroom, drag my mum up the wall to be fair with it, but I'd always sit just bouncing, the same repetitive thing for hours. Or I'd, like to watch TV or playing video games as well. Um, but like any kid, you'd have a little sort of paddy and moan, but then you just get on with it. It was always just, yeah, okay, next thing, whatever.
So it kind of just didn't really seem to bother you.
I think it did in ways, but it was there was never any like resentment or like hate or like questioning to it. That was just the norm for me, like this is your parents tell you what to do and you do it. You might have a little argument, you might have a hissy fit, but it was just the norm.
Do you think that's in who you are? Because you seem to have a very kind of upbeat disposition as well. You know, you don't really get down and kind of hold on to things a lot. Is that the case with you,
Uh,
Danny, or have you learned that from you being as a kid and having to deal with all of this?
I've definitely had lots of ups and downs. I think as a kid though, you're just so used to dealing with adversity and dealing with setbacks. I think kids are just naturally more adaptable. I think you'll see like, anyone that's maybe acquired an injury and become disabled later in life, they'll find it a lot difficult because they've known one way of life, and then to have to relearn how to do everything all again. It's not necessarily the thing about learning it; it's the mental switch of going from this life to this life and just getting over that. Whereas, for me, for someone that's never known any different, it's as a kid, it's just always been just getting on to the next thing.
Obviously, your upbringing is much different. I mean, sorry, just to kind of clarify, was
Yeah,
your dad
yeah.
around it at the time, or you?
No.
No,
So my dad
just your
was
mum, yeah.
around sporadically until about the age of 5 or 6, but then didn't really see him at all
Okay.
until after my mum died, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I didn't. There was always a bit of a taboo thing around my dad when I was little, and my mum was very private, very didn't like to share um, information, and she was very sort of closed off. And looking back in it now, I sort of get why, I understand why, but she's very like emotionally sort of closed as a person, and it was sort of just like I said, made very taboo subject to talk about him.
So clearly you were close with your mum. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we lived to like I was her second child. I was the child with the disability. So
Yeah,
she devoted her life to me ultimately.
yeah, because all eyes are on you, aren't they,
Yeah.
Danny? You know,
She didn't work after I was born. She focused purely solely on me.
that's quite a lot to kind of give up, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, when we think about it now today, like, would you do the same in that situation? And you know, you don't have a choice, so I think you would. You know, it's kind of, you know, the love of a child kind of takes over, doesn't it? So
Yeah.
yeah. So secondary school, at any point did you go to what we class as a normal
Yeah,
school?
mainstream school.
Mainstream school, I would say, yeah.
There is a bit of a story around this.
Okay, yeah.
During, get my years right, it'd be like 2008, 2009, there was a big push to try and have more inclusion with education. And obviously we had these special needs schools, the SEN schools, but they want, you know, there was a big push for the local council and the national government to try and have more of these people together, disabled people with able-bodied children. And the school I went to was closed down after about a year, 2 years of protests. There was marches. There was, which I was a part of, my family was a part of, trying to protest the closure of the school. Went down to Downing Street. I was actually very lucky to go to Downing Street and sit outside number 10 and take the petitions.
What was the reason for this closure?
Politics obviously plays a part, you know. There was, like I said, there was the want to try and include disabled people in the community more, in the local communities more, and have them at mainstream. The land was worth quite a bit of money. Obviously property development, there's houses now built on there. But I think, you know, like, there's always other things that's going on, you know, always like whether there's money making going on or whatever. I wouldn't like to guess. I don't think, but on the face of it, it was to try and include more disabled people in mainstream education.
So you got stuck in?
Yeah, well, my family got stuck in. My mum, my uncle. You know, I was there taking part in it all as well. So in 2009, the school did close down, and I went to my school on the end of the street, Hindley High. But before, actually, so I'm getting a little ahead of myself. My mum actually gave me the option of either going to a mainstream school or to another SEN school. There was two very close to each other. There's Hindley High, and then there was Oakfield High School, which catered for people with disabilities. Very much in the same way as Mere Oaks, but it was different in a way because they catered more for behavioural needs as well, whereas Mere Oaks is purely physical disabilities. So my mum gave me the choice, went and looked around both schools, but I sort of had it in my mind straight away that I wanted to go to Hindley High because my brother went there. I was like, I wanna go to the same school my brother went to. It'd be cool, that it'd be fun. And my mum was like, okay, that's what you want to do. Okay. Obviously, there was a bit of trepidation from her. You know what kids are like, the rough and tumble, different environment. But ultimately, she let me do what I wanted to do. There was a big investment from the school to make the school more accessible because at the time, with everything going on, the school just wasn't accessible. There was stairs to classes. There was large areas just wasn't accessible at all. And the physical education curriculum was tailored for an able-bodied kid, not someone with a disability. So they invested hard. They built a brand new building. They called it G Block. It was basically like a hub, like a disabled hub. We'd go in and more, the transport would pick us up, take us into school. We'd go inside this little like common room where we could sit and chill. It's like our own little safe haven away from the other kids if we needed it. And then we could do physio in there if we needed physiotherapy and all that. And then they had a couple of classrooms in there for maths. But ultimately it was physio. There was some, I think OTs had a room in there as well. And they were meant to be in something else as well.
So you had a nice special area
Yeah.
for you guys. And,
Yeah, but they did include the other kids as well, because they had the classrooms in there as well, so there was a bit of intermingling as well.
Yeah, because you're at a mainstream school. You want to mingle. You want to be like every other kid, don't you?
Yeah.
So and
we could go out. We could go out and just, you know, on the playgrounds. There's multiple playgrounds. Go out and do whatever, go up to the cafes and all of that. We'd have special perks as well, which, you know, to understand, so we didn't get absolutely crushed in the mobs of kids, because there must have been a couple of hundred kids at my school. Maybe, I don't know, 400. You know, so it was a lot. And, you know, tight corridors and that, I'd get absolutely crushed, and especially with my disability as well. It wasn't ideal. So the teachers would allow us to leave the class 5 minutes early to get to the next class. And then when we were queuing up for dinner, we was able to go to the front of the queue and start and get there 5 minutes early before the other kids would leave class as well.
The teachers were probably more of a nervous wreck than you were, were they, Danny?
I think so. I remember my PE teacher, Mr. Turley, telling me the story about how in the summer leading up to us starting, they did these courses, how to sort of get kids involved. And he was a PE teacher, so how to get them involved in taking part in exercise and this and that, and, you know, all the things to sort of be aware of. He said as soon as you came barreling through the door, all that was went out the window. He's like, it was not everything that they told us on these courses was not applicable at all. You wanted to take part, you knew what you wanted, and you was the one making the adaptations. I was just facilitating it. And I think when he realised we wanted to do it as a GCSE, he was like, okay, I've got some work to do here.
But that must be great for them as well, and especially if they can adapt and just give them some wiggle room to kind of just bend the rules a little bit, you know. Because
Yeah.
if you stick to the rules for so much, you're going to miss out, and
Yeah.
you're not going to be able to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
And then that's your school. School is quite a big thing for a kid.
Yeah.
To us now, 5 years is nothing, but when you're a kid,
Yeah.
senior school, it's a huge thing. It's your development, your life,
Yeah.
and this is where you bond, make friends, and you find out who you really are, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I think it was a big a big eye opener for everybody, because the kids in my class were obviously, I want to use the word warned. I don't know if warned's the right word, but they were sort of told about us coming. There was only about 6, 7 of us that started that had disabilities. There was a couple of people in power chairs. One had like a walking frame, and there's a couple of us in manual chairs as well. So we started there, and I remember like some of them who I'm still friends with now. They'd say like, we did, you know, you made an impression on us. You know, you wanted to sort of join in, be involved, and, you know, we didn't have to be careful around you and or whatever. You know, and like anything, you know, at school, you know, you get a bit of bullying going on. I think they quickly realised, you know, that you can't really bully him. He's going to say something. He's going to fight back.
so did that kind of sharpen your wit or your kind of your comebacks as well, Danny?
Yeah, you know, I think that's probably more from being around older people with my family and that. You know, you develop that sense of humour and a bit more maturity and a bit more like just edge to yourself.
Well, it's all you ever known, so
Yeah,
it becomes that, doesn't it?
yeah,
You go, well, I've had like 11 years of this. When you start senior school, it doesn't really, it shouldn't really affect you.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I
Well,
mean, obviously, it must affect you at some point. You know what I
it
mean?
was halfway through senior school when we started, so it was year 9 when I actually went to mainstream. So I already done 2 years of high school at Mere Oaks. So we was literally coming in halfway through. I had to that year. I was doing my SATs. I don't know if SATs are still a thing now, but doing my options and picking for my final 2 years to do my GCSEs. So it was very much you got to hit the ground running here. And because of I'd never not Mere Oaks because it was a great school, and what it did to facilitate disabled kids was brilliant. And it, it, you know, I don't think there'll ever be a school built quite like that again. But in terms of the education I got, it was very minimal, and I had to learn quickly when I went to when I went to Hinley, and it was having structured classes, 5 classes a day that was like an hour long, and very, you know, you had to focus. Yet the amount of writing that you had to do, I couldn't keep up. Luckily, I had a teaching assistant that would help, because physically, like, I've not got perfect hands, but like just holding a pen for so long, I get pains in my hands, my fingers, in my joints. So, you know, these were challenges that I was facing now in education that I never thought I'd face. You know, and the demand that was put on me which was the same demand that they were putting on every other kid as well. It was just a big eye opener because I'd never experienced anything like that at Mere Oaks. Having multiple books for different classes, it was never something that we had.
You just life's sort of. I mean, everyone has the challenges, but you seem to have got tenfold challenges to everybody else.
Yeah.
And now this is a challenge, but you just kind of crack on and get on with it, don't you?
Yeah. And that was the thing, it's just, right, okay, this is what I've got to do. It's got to make it work.
So you must have enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed, there was aspects of school I didn't enjoy, like any kid, didn't want to go to school and that, but it was, so, tell you the story, my final year in year 11, my first day back at school, rewind, in the summer of my final year, I got a brand new wheelchair. I was going out, I think I was going to the opticians with my mum or something, pushing along down the street, been there, doing all that, we're coming back. I'm still getting used to the chair. So I've gone out, hit a curb, come falling out my chair, gone in the middle of the road, I've hurt my shoulder as I fell. So I'm on the floor in the middle of the road, but circumstance would have it, there's police at the bottom of the street raiding the house. So they actually stopped this raid going on and decided, we need to go and lad in the wheelchair's falling out. So they had this pile come up, shut the road, called an ambulance. I'm lying there on the floor, like, couldn't move. Turns out I broke my scapula and my collarbone. So take me to hospital. Not really much you can do for that sort of thing. So I've got like a sling on. Okay, fair enough. No worries. It was like the back end of summer as well, so maybe 2 or 3 weeks until I'm back in school. So there was communication had between my mum and the school. What's we're gonna do? What's Danny gonna do? I was like, I'll be fine. I'll be okay. Well, my mates can push me around. It's no problem. Whatever. They're like, okay, no problem. So I've got into school. Transport's taken me, no problem. Dropped me off at the G block in the little communal area bit that we had. Like 5-minute warning for the bell going to reception, or like the first thing in the morning where you sign in with your form class. One of the teaching assistants was taking me to that. So going down, and then I remember distinctly, we're getting into the building, there was a lip on the door. So the door's open, one of the kids is holding the door open. But because I'm being pushed, the person that was pushing me didn't realise they've got to lift the back of my chair up so the casters go over the lip. So my casters just dug into the lip, and I tried to put my arm out to stop myself from going out forward again, because they didn't know what was going on. So I've got my arm like this, and I'm going forward, and they're pushing. I'm like, no, stop. Broke my upper scapula, didn't I?
No.
First day of school, I'd been in there maybe half an hour. And I'm like, oh no. I'm like in absolute agony. I'm like, stop. I'm like, as growing up, my family will tell you, I always hid the fact I had a fracture. I would never admit to it. I'd try and hide it. I'd try and get on with it. I'd be fine. Actually, I have a fracture on my arm here. You can see like it's a bit misshapen. This is back at Miro. Just playing with one of the kids, play fighting, and he hit me on the arm and broke it. I didn't realise though, to be fair, but I felt like a little niggle. But I never sort of admit to it or say anything. I just got on with it and it healed a little funny, but I was fine. But this that happened that day, I was like, no, I need to, there's something wrong here. So they took me up to the reception. I'm like, you need to ring my mum. You need to ring my mum. Like, so mum's come in. She's like, oh, what's going on? The school was like, oh, gonna have to go to hospital or whatever. So again, ambulance comes, and I go off. And the school didn't want me to come back in school until I was able to propel myself. So I basically spent almost the whole of year 11 off. I remember I was off right up until Christmas. Then we had mock exams for GCSEs. So mum took me in for them. At this point, I've not had a single lesson. I've been sent homework home. I've not had a single lesson of GCSE level education. did okay, did surprisingly okay in my GCSEs, but they thought, probably get like D's in his exams. There wasn't really much expectation on any of us that came from the special needs schools. There wasn't really much expectation had on us. So again, I was off for the first 3 months in the new year. And I went back in the February. And then actually I had another issue which was completely unrelated. It happened in school, but it was just unrelated. It was one of them things I could have been at home anywhere. But I have rods in my legs that if I have a fracture, it basically stops it from being a complete fracture. It turns it into a hairline. So the healing time's a lot quicker. So it stops the bone from being displaced. The rods are telescopic, so I had these in from a young age. And the one in my thigh had come apart, 'cause I'd grown and grown, and it just came apart. But the weight of them had started sort of bending. And I was in school just at dinner time, just eating food, and I felt it cut, and I had a slight fracture in my leg. And it wasn't anything that I couldn't deal with. It was only like a slight bit of pain, but that sort of set the summer a little bit. I had to have an operation later on in the summer to replace the rod. But I just sort of limited me a little bit. It wasn't really much of an issue, just a minor thing. But I had 4 months of my year 11, went into my GCSEs, managed to come out with all C's basically, which they were shocked at. The other kids with a disability that were in my year, they didn't do great, but they weren't as bright as me, wasn't as academically switched on as myself. But I did what I needed to do to get into college, basically.
And let's run through the college years as well. Are very much kind of, I'm guessing similar, but you're going into more the party years, aren't you? So what?
I loved college. College made me, if anyone was to ask, like I went here, Wigan League College, Lee Sixth Form. Um, it's again, it's all circumstance how things work out. And it's funny, really. So I was big involved in sport when I went to Hinley. I knew I wanted to do coaching. I knew I wanted to be involved in sport, but at the time I believed I couldn't take part in sport. So I was like, right, I'll be a coach. I'll coach football. So my PE teacher would have me involved in the year 7 football team or something, or I was sort of learning how to coach. And we had it was like a little awards program thing that the schools had, and it all sort of culminated in coming to this venue and doing like a sports day sort of thing. And the college students were basically they were leading. It was a practice for them putting on an event with school kids. And the college tutor here, Julie, I sort of caught her eye, and we got chatting. And I was like, I want to come and do coaching. And she was like, right, I'm having you. You come in here. And we developed a little bit of a rapport and friendship. And from then, I knew when I did my GCSEs, I was going to come here. I was like, just get what I need to get. Come here. I know one of the staff members already, and she was the head of the course. She wanted me. She's dead nice. She got me. She got my passion for sport. And I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. So
Did it kind of open up like a new world to you, Danny?
yeah,
Yeah, a bit more freedom, a bit more
yeah.
independence, you think, yeah?
College timetables are completely different than school. So I was only in 3-4 days a week, and one of them days was a half day as well. So I felt like an adult. And we got they had this, I can't remember the name of it now, but we used to have this thing where you'd basically get it signed by the lecturer, and if you attended all your lectures, you got money, you got paid for it was like if you was from a low income home as well. So I was like, getting money to like go, and this is going into my account, and it's mine, and I wouldn't spend it on anything at the time because I wasn't really doing much because I still wasn't driving. So a minibus would come, drop me off, pick me up. But at the time I was like, this is great, I had friends that were, I was able to sort of be more involved with them because there was no special needs sort of segregation or like little safe area. I was in amongst with everyone because everyone was more mature here. I felt more safe. Wasn't like in school in the corridors where it was all people pushing each other and scared someone's going to fall on me. But he was more mature, and I felt I could be more open and engage with people. And I think it was once I started being able to drive, and I had that independence of driving coupled with the friends that I made here, it just really opened up a whole world to me.
So these are the years when things are just kind of coming together.
Yeah.
You're really becoming just independent who you are. What's mum's thoughts at this time?
I think like any parent struggling to let go, she obviously saw I was, she'd never stopped me from doing the things like the big life, them like life moments, like learning how to drive and all of that. But letting go and having me out and about, like any kid, be out till all hours doing, whatever. She struggled with that side of things, I think. Um, it's a bit weird to explain, but I got a car through Motability, but I wasn't able to lift it in the car myself because it wasn't a collapsing frame, and I still hadn't actually developed the body strength or the understanding to know how to get a chair in the car and get it over. So I was very much reliant on others to be the one end or the other to get my chair out for me, and then I could get myself off the driver's seat into the wheelchair. So I'd pick a few people up on my way into college, and then they'd get my chair out for me, and it's I scratch your back, you scratch mine sort of situation, which worked well. But when I came back home, I'd perk up on the drive. My mum would be sort of on tenterhooks, looking through the blinds, like, "Oh, he's here! Oh, come on, get my chair out." And then, but again, I was limited, so if I wanted to go out again, I need to know there's someone on the other end, you know.
So did you kind of design your life around this sort of way of living? Yeah.
A little bit, yeah. But then there was a lot of frustration, a lot of want for me to do more. So I was 18 at the time, and I got these mates, and they're like, "Oh, why don't you come on a night out with us? Like, let's go out." And I'm like, "Night out? Like, what?" And they're like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, come on." And I'm like, "Okay, all right." First time I was just like absolutely bricking it. Like, what is this? This is a whole new thing. Like, so I remember saying to my mum, and she's like, "Absolutely not. No, no, no." I'm like, "I'm gonna stay at their house." And after a bit of convincing, she was like, "Okay, all right," and begrudgingly let me go off. But then from that point, it just was like, what's this is what life is like. You can go out and do these things and have this freedom, and it was just complete like mind blowing experience. Um, and then from that point on, funnily, I was out every week. We had student night on Thursday. I was like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then I'd go home Sunday for Sunday dinner. My mum hated it, absolutely hated it, and it came to a point actually where she kicked me out. So I was living on my mate's couch for like 4 months because she
Just
was,
because you're pushing
yeah,
yourself then.
pushing boundaries, and looking back on it now, I regret some of the things, the way I was with my mum, but at the same time, I know if I didn't push the boundaries the way I did, I would never have been given the freedom that I got. She learned, probably not a nice way of learning it, but she learned that actually he's okay, he's fine, he can go and do these things himself, and you know he's becoming an adult.
So did you push the boundaries to a point where you had to pull it back a little bit, Danny? Did you kind of go a
Um,
little too far on that or
I
not?
definitely pushed it too
Yeah.
far.
Were you drinking alcohol and stuff like that?
Yeah, yeah. Drinking alcohol, never smoked, never did anything like that, but I'd get drunk. Um, Sometimes to an excessive point. Um, but there was never like an abuse of it going on. It was just enjoying myself with my mates, and they were all really good as well. They'd always make sure I was all right, and there was about a group of 5 or 6 of us, and everyone looked after everyone. There's always, you never leave like a man behind sort of situation. But they made me feel involved, and I never at once felt disabled. Um, they was a big part in me sort of realizing, you can do whatever you want ultimately.
So let's move into like employment and stuff like that, job prospects and things. Is that
Um,
completely different for yourself, or you just going, I want to be a coach, I know what I want to do?
the lines get a bit blurred with this because I went to uni, and as like my second, third year in uni, I was becoming a very good wheelchair rugby player. I was in the talent squad. I was the main player in the talent squad. Um, I had eyes set on being a GB elite player after the Rio Paralympics. I finished uni the year before, so 2015 I finished. So in my mind, I was like, right, I'll finish uni. I'll maybe look for a part-time job, but I'm just going to focus on becoming a GB player. Training. I was training in Southport, my club, once a week. I was driving out to Sheffield every Monday to train with the Marauders once a week. I was doing some sessions down in Leicester every now and again, or going down to London. I was just doing as much rugby as I could do, and watching the footage, doing the gym. Everything was just focused on being that athlete.
So it's 100% you're in.
Yeah.
But, Danny, you have a disease of brittle bones and you've got wheelchair rugby. I mean, what are these two worlds combined?
uh, yeah. There's not many of us that play with brittle bones. At the time back then, there was three of us. Guy in Ireland and a guy in Germany, myself. There's only two of us now. Leggy, the lad in Ireland, and me. Um, so we're very rare. But there's, although it's physical, it's all the chair. There's nothing physical between body and body. So the chair takes all the impact. Like anyone, I've had injuries. And I will get to a story about, quite a specific injury that happened as I was making my GB entrance. But, like anything, if you manage things and you understand how the game works, you're fine.
So the injury,
Yeah.
let's
So, Rio happened. The team unfortunately did do very well, finished fifth. And as a result of that, the funding got cut from UK Sport. So we was an unfunded programme. Players had retired as well off the back of that. But also it meant like player wages was gone as well. So the APAs that players were going to get. So one or two maybe left because of that as well, because they needed to have an income to sustain home life, had families. For me, it was regardless of that. I was like, nah, I want to be a GB player. I'll work out the details afterwards. I've not got kids. There's no dependence on me. I can work out a wage or an income after. I was all, still living with my mum as well, so I had that safety net there a little bit. So I was like, right, still gonna focus, become a GB player. 20 end of 2016 December, there was a bit of a joint camp that happened between the elite squad and the talent squad. It was a prep camp for a talent squad going off to Prague. So we played all that, great, no worries. Went to Prague, had a real good tournament. Off the back of that, um, they were like, "Yep, looking really good. You can come to the selection camp in January." I'm like, brilliant. Christmas. Don't think I've ever been so scrupulous over Christmas and having the Yorkshire puddings and pigs in blankets were on my plate on my whole life. But I was just like, right, focus, couple of weeks, no club sessions being on because it's Christmas. I'll just do whatever I can, make sure I'm in tip-top shape. New Year came, January came, that camp came quickly afterwards. Went into the camp, and I had a little niggle with my leg. I was like, it's a little sore, but probably just the winter, I get like that, with the cold weather, you can feel where you've had like old fractures and things, and I was like, it's nothing. Um, Gets into the camp, doing the testing, scored really well in the testing. First day stuff, little drills, great. Second day, getting into more gameplay stuff. I'm looking great. I'm really dialed in. I knew exactly what lineup I would be in when I came into this squad. I'd already done the prep and the mental prep with all that, so I knew exactly what I had to do, where to be, how it would change. I was on fire. I was playing really good. I was really happy. And then we were doing this drill called a meat grinder. So you start off on defense. There's one team going key to key, attacking either side. But then once they've attacked the key, they've got to get out the half. And the teams that are on either end, they've got to defend them, stop them getting out. So I'm on the defense. And I remember doing the defense. Okay, they've scored the key attack. Right, okay, keep them in the half now. I'm going up. I'm on my player. And then I had to switch onto Ayaz. So I've dropped down to Ayaz, I've gone in, hit him, put my arm up to like stop the pass, and I've gone over on my ankle on my foot plate, and all the weight's come down, and there's a weak point in my leg, and it's just gone, broke. I'm like, straight away I went, I'm like, shit. I knew exactly, I was like, it's gone, it broke. Like, this is the worst possibility, the worst time for this to happen. So I was quietly just wheeled off, went to the assistant coach, went, can I get a sub? Like, yep, no problem. So I sat there with him a second. He's like, you okay? I was like, broke. He's like, what? I'm like, yeah, I broke my leg. He's like, I said to him, can I get in my chair? He's like, yeah. So I just quietly wheeled over, pulled up in front of my day chair. And like, in my head, I'm like, I need to get in my chair quickly because I knew adrenaline was sort of at the minute keeping the pain at bay. But I was like, I need to get out quickly and get in my day chair, but I couldn't. And I couldn't move, couldn't get myself out. So the coach comes over, he's like, you okay? I was like, broke. And it was a few words hard, and he said a few things, upset me a little bit, but he didn't say anything bad or wrong. He was pointing out, do you think about if this happened in a tournament, what would you do? And at that point, I didn't really want to hear that. I was like, my GB trial's done now. Like, this is my chance in GB gone. So the assistants, people that we have, the mechanics, whatever in the team came over, like, right, do you want a hand trying to get out? It's like, yeah, okay. Couldn't get out. I was in that much pain. I was having spasm issues, which has never really happened with a fracture before. I was getting really bad spasms that was causing the pain to be even worse. And whenever they tried to move me, I just couldn't get out the chair into my day chair. So I was like, right, bring an ambulance, get me on the gas and air. So I was in absolutely agony and got me out, got me onto a bed, took me off to the hospital, stayed at the hospital that night. They didn't really want to put me in a cast because I already have rods in my legs. They're like, well, the rod's set. And they were being a bit hard work, to be honest. But I already had these sort of like leg molding things, and sort of use them as like splints. So I was like, just get that out of my kit bag. I'll stick that on, put some bandage or whatever, and I'll just use that because it was a lower leg fracture. So I did that. One of the assistants, people from the team, took me back to Lillishore, where my care was, and my uncle came and met me and took me home. I was absolutely distraught. Between all that happening overnight, sat in hospital, I was in tears, thinking my career's done. I'm not going to be a GB player. Why are they going to select me now after this? Because of my disability, I already carry the label of being injury prone, even though I've had very, very few injuries in my career. But just because of the circumstance of when this has happened, I was like, nah, they're not going to bother with me. Whilst my uncle was driving me home, though, one of the assistants rang me up and was like, we wanted to let you know before we let the rest of the squad know about their selections. We're actually going to give you another chance, and we'd see the value. You played so good up until that. You've got 4 weeks basically to try and be ready for this training camp with Denmark. And I was like, okay, no worries. Like I said, had 4 weeks. I wasn't really allowed to do much. Couldn't do anything. Couldn't really move about. Definitely couldn't get in my rugby chair. And then right up until the camp, I was like, I'll leave it as long as possible and rest, let it heal as much as possible. Because of the spasm issues that I was having as well, they put me on some medication to stop the spasming happening. because it was very unique. It never happened before with any fracture. This, so it was it was a bit of a left field experience with that. So I was on muscle relaxers to help with that, which were great. They were helping me sleep as well. But in terms of being mentally like switched on and focused, it made you so droopy and drowsy. I knew I couldn't be taking them if I wanted to play a game. Probably not very legal as well when it comes to anti-doping. But yeah, so I left it right up until before the camp, and we had a club session here. I think it might have been a fitness session actually on a Tuesday night here, and I remember pushing around, and I was like, feels okay. I was very trepid and like nervous, and my confidence was gone in the chair because started from square one again. So I'm pushing around. I'm like, okay, and like just come and give me a little love tap. Just oh, I felt that. Like, that's not good. I was like, okay. In my mind, I'm thinking I'm just gonna have to get on with this. Like, just make it work. Got the schedule for the camp a few days later. I was like, right, okay, first day's fitness, no contact, I'm good. And then it's just like some light drills, and then on the third day, Denmark come in, and it's just games from there. And I wasn't in every game because they wanted to see different people to select for the Euros. So I knew I was playing 3 out of the 5 games, and I knew my lineups again. I knew I was going to play with. So I was like, right, okay, I really need to think about how I'm going to play this game because Denmark are a physical team. Got some big lads like Seb Frederiksen, Leon Jorgensen. They don't pull the punches. And I played with Leon as well. He was playing at our club a couple of seasons prior, so I knew what he was about. And then first few days, I was very much like Bambi, like very lacking confidence, wasn't sure. Was doing the drills, and the team captain even made a comment to me. He's like, "You okay? You seem a bit like within yourself." I'm like, "No, I'm fine. I'm fine. Just finding my feet." And then we got to the games, and I just remember thinking, if you want to go to the Euros, you got to just suck it up. Um, the this GB staff all believed I was signed off and perfectly fine. I got the doctor to sign me off and tell him I was able to play. Actual fact is, I probably wasn't. I was in the leg. The fracture was still there. I was all casted up, strapped into the chair, and I had to change my chair setup as well because I had the cast on. So I had to take the foot plate off. I had to strap my foot to the side of the frame and just make it work. Um, so we got to the games, and I'm just like, right, let's just go for it. And I wasn't my best, but I was tactically and technically very good. Might not have been the fastest or the sharpest, but the things that I was doing to a really high level, and that was noticed. And by some miracle, they decided to select me. So I went off to the Euros off the back of that, and the rest is history, and we won a gold.
I mean, this is just purely because of you pushing. You've pushed it and you've always been at the forefront in your life of taking that little risk. And you took a risk on yourself again,
Yeah.
Danny, by doing that. So what's it like to now look back and go, I made it on TeamGB? Like,
Um, Pride. Um, that year was a hard year because of the funding cut. We were relying very much on the generosity of strangers, donations to get us to that tournament because they're not cheap, the tournaments. We're talking at least 10 grand for an entry. And then you think about the flights, the accommodation. We were there for, it was because it was in Germany, in Koblensk. We were there for over a week because there's all the things that goes on with the tournament, the classification, the training sessions prior. All these things cost money. So the pressure that was on me and on us as a team was massive, because all these people are taking hard-earned money out of their pockets for us so we can go and do this. And we knew we didn't have the same resources that we did when we were funded. The camps looked different. We couldn't go travel abroad to prep against any teams. We had to muck in and really work for each other and push each other to try and be the best that we could. And like I said, people retired after Rio, so it was a changed squad. There was players that did carry on, but there was probably five of us maybe that was new. There's 2 new assistant coaches as well that came from talent with us. So it was, the odds were stacked against us, and to add to the pressure, main player, talisman man, he wasn't going to be there for the final because it was his brother's wedding. So we knew if we did get to the final, Lionel Messi, as it were, he wouldn't be there. So we have to really be ready to step up and play that part.
So, what did Mum think of all of this at the end?
Um,
Was she proud?
so just to, there's always a little twist to the tale, isn't there? While all this was going on, my mum had been diagnosed with cancer. This was actually the second time she got the cancer. So she got bowel cancer the year prior, and she had been able to catch it early. Went in, was able to remove a part of the bowel, and we thought that was it. However, this is 2017 now. But back in the 2016, 2017, she went back for the checkup, and they found that actually the polyps and the cells or whatever, the cancerous cells had spread into a fatty tissue around the stomach. So she had to then go on to some really intense surgery at the Christie in Manchester to remove quite a large part of her bowel. All these fatty tissues have like little bits of like a liver and a kidney sort of scraped off where all these polyps had like attached. And it was a very new surgery that was going on then. I think there's only been 1 or 2 others in the UK that had it done before. So she was, it was very much a pioneering thing. So she was undergoing all of that. So in between me having her camps and her prep stuff, I was going into the Christie and seeing her, and because it was such a traumatic surgery for her. She lost a lot of weight. She had to have what's it called, the bag.
Colostomy
Yeah,
bag.
colostomy bag. She had to have one of them colostomy bags as well. So having to learn how to manage all of that, and she's lost all her appetite as well. She wasn't able to speak properly quite a long time actually. So there was very much the focus was on her. Although I had all this going on and I'm like training hard, working hard, the focus in my mind, my focus was on my mum and making sure she was okay and recovering well. But she was proud. I remember she watched the games. Um, I said watching it, she probably had her fingers between her hands between her eyes between her fingers, but she was always dead nervous about me playing rugby. But she watched the Euros. She watched me in the final. I don't know. She was proud of me.
Unfortunately, Danny, I'm going to have to wrap it up because I know they're going to kick us out.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But I could talk to you forever. We could do a part 2, and I'll have to do the barbarian stuff
Yeah,
later
yeah,
on,
yeah.
but we'll pick that up.
We will, yeah.
But just a little message out there to people who have been in your situation. You've come through a lot. What would you like to say? Just a nice finishing couple of lines.
Everyone faces challenges, just because my challenges might seem like mountains to you doesn't diminish or take away to what challenges you have. It doesn't make them any less of a challenge. Understand that we've all got problems in life, and we're all learning as we go along. We're all going to make mistakes, but ultimately, as long as we're here tomorrow, it doesn't matter.